What's the first time the Supreme Court told Congress what to do? It was in 1857. Back in 1820, Congress had passed a law that eliminated slavery in certain territories, part of the Missouri Compromise. 1857, the first time the Supreme Court used judicial review against Congress was in the Dred Scott decision. They said, hey, you know that law you did back in 1820 that said you could end slavery in some of the territories? That's an unconstitutional law. You can't end slavery anywhere because slaves are property, not people. That's the famous case where the Supreme Court said no black has any right which a white man is bound to respect. That's an abominable decision. That's the first use of judicial review against Congress in history. So again, Lincoln ignored that decision as well, as did Congress, because it was just the Supreme Court. I mean, that's all. It wasn't a big deal like it is today. I mean, it's just one of the three branches. So people today, and I get law students and law professors say, yeah, but you know, the court really is good at protecting minorities. It may not have been good back then, but it's really good. As a matter of fact, think about Brown versus Board of Education. That's where the Supreme Court stepped in and ended segregation in education. Wasn't that a good decision? And you can say, well, you know, the outcome of that was certainly very good. Segregation should have been ended in education, and the court said it should have been. But I need to tell you the rest of the story. The rest of the story is not the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education decision. You have to go back to 1875. In 1875, Congress passed a congressional law that banned segregation everywhere. Banned segregation in education, in dining, in restaurants, in transportation. Congress banned segregation in 1875. 1882, the Supreme Court struck down that law and said, oh no, you can't ban segregation. We think segregation is a good thing for society. All the Supreme Court did in Brown versus Board of Education was reverse itself from 70 years earlier. If they had left it to the people had ended segregation 75 years before the court did. The people are the best protector of the people's rights, not the court. John Jay was another original member of the Supreme Court. You may recall that he was a founding vice president of the American Bible Society. Well, 5 years after the founding of that organization, John Jay became its second president. The annual speeches he delivered to that society as its president are powerful declarations of his own beliefs about the efficacy of the Bible.
By conveying the Bible to people, we certainly do them a most interesting act of kindness. We thereby enable them to learn that man was originally created and placed in a state of happiness, but becoming disobedient was subjected to the degradation and evils which he and his posterity have since experienced. The Bible will also inform them that our gracious Creator has provided for us a Redeemer in whom all the nations of the earth should be blessed, that this Redeemer has made atonement for the sins of the whole world, and thereby reconciling the divine justice with the divine mercy, has opened a way for our redemption and salvation, and that these inestimable benefits are of the free gift and grace of God, not of our deserving, nor in our power to deserve. The Bible will also encourage them with many explicit and consoling assurances of the divine mercy to our fallen race, and with repeated invitations to accept the offers of pardon and reconciliation. They, therefore, who enlist in His service have the highest encouragement to fulfill the duties assigned to their respective stations, for most certain it is that those of His followers who participate in His conquests will also participate in the transcendent glories and blessings of His triumph.
By the way, this is a bust of John Jay, the original Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, and this is one of the Bibles printed and distributed by the American Bible Society under his leadership.
I am absolutely overwhelmed by what I've been hearing concerning the judiciary and its overreaching, unbelievable...
Well, now we hear that it comes down to 5 people.
It comes down to 5. And by the way, let me tell you something. We have federal elections in America every 2 years. And every 2 years, you're going to choose 1/3 of the U.S. Senate. And every 4 years, you're going to choose a president or re-choose a president, depending on the circumstances. When any citizen goes to vote in this United States, the #1 issue that he looks at for president or for Senate should be, what are you going to do with the judges?
Wow.
Are you going to appoint judges that are strict constructionists that will restrain themselves to what the Constitution says they're going to do? Are you going to give me more judges that think they're legislators? Yeah. If you're going to give me judges that think they're legislators, I don't care what else you believe, I'm voting against you, because you're screwing up the nation for the next 4 decades.
Right.
Because in this culture today, for the last 50 years, there is no part of the government that's more dominant than the judiciary. And if we don't start electing presidents and senators willing to keep that branch under control, then it really doesn't matter what Congress does or what the President does, because they get the final word on it at the court. And that has to be something that we've got to get a hold of again as citizens. We've got to get that branch back under control. We need to elect presidents and senators who understand there is a separation of powers, that when the Supreme Court says jump, they don't say how high. They say, jump yourself. We're staying over here in our branch.
Right.
If Christians think that, well, this has nothing to do with me because this is not spiritual, you need to go back and see all the things the Bible says about judges.
Yeah.
Ezra 7:25 says, appoint judges who know the laws of God. Psalms 2, verses 10 through 12 says, judges of the earth, fear the Lord, serve His Son. That's a really remarkable verse. You've got scriptures in 2 Chronicles 19, verses 6 and 7, tells judges how to rule. God is all over the issue of judges. As a matter of fact, Isaiah 1:26, God tells us that judges determine the righteousness of a nation. Man, as Christians, we ought to be all over what kind of judges are going to be appointed.
Right.
That's a biblical issue, and it's time for us to get back engaged in that issue and choose senators and presidents who do the right thing with judges.
For more information on the American Heritage Series, or to find books and other resources, visit wallbuilders.com. Through the American Heritage Series, renowned historian David Barton communicates our nation's forgotten, godly foundations and encourages us to once again view history through a truthful lens. For only when we recognize and embrace God's hand in our history can America become all that it was intended to be. Through Wall Builders, historian David Barton seeks to rebuild the walls of America's unique religious, moral, and constitutional heritage by educating the public and encouraging people of faith to become active in strengthening America's great foundations. For more information on how you can become involved, visit wallbuilders.com.